This is Locked On Bets, the daily betting show that means business from the Locked On Podcast Network. Hosted by Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers, they're dropping fearless picks with an inside edge to put money in your pocket. If there's action, they've got the lock. This is where smart bets start. It's Locked On Bets.
Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Bets. Kevin Rogers and Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports with you, and a very busy Monday night to review. Also a lot to get to here on the Tuesday show. Dodgers and Brewers game 2 coming up tonight from Milwaukee. Also, guess what, Lee? Not one, but 2 NHL plays tonight for a busy night inside the National Hockey League. And also we're going to look at Utah and BYU, the Holy War in the Big 12. And they will meet up on Saturday. So we got a lot to look at today. But first, though, it's time for the wrong player favorite.
What the fuck? WTF.
Dodgers and Brewers tonight, game 2 of this NLCS. And it doesn't matter that Milwaukee took every regular season meeting from LA this year. Dodgers do enough behind Blake Snell to beat the Brewers last night 2-1. So now they turn to their second ace. They had their lefty last night. Now it's their righty Yamamoto taking the mound. And Lee, what do you like with his player prop tonight?
Well, if it's not enough, you got to face Blake Snell, and then you got to face a guy with this name, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. So quite the dynamic pitcher here. And I mean, the Dodgers, are really good. But I think this number of 6.5 strikeouts minus 100 is a little high. Milwaukee, a top 5 in Major League Baseball as far as least amount of strikeouts. Only 4 teams are in front of them for the least amount of strikeouts. It's a must-win game for the Brewers. And I think they make Yamamoto work here tonight. My algorithm has him almost a full strikeout under this prop number. And unlike, some of these other games, first game of the series, this is the second game. They got to make him work. They got to get his pitch count up. So I think it's imperative that they try to get him out by the 5th or 6th inning. And they're going to their whole game plan, I think, here is going to be make contact. Maybe they do a couple sacrifice bunts here. Unlike what we've seen in Major League Baseball this year, this is playoff baseball. And playoff baseball, when you get 2 really good teams with good pitchers out there, you just can't just be swinging for the fences. That usually doesn't work out. So I'm going to go with wrong player favored, not wrong team favored, Yoshinobu Yamamoto under 6.5 strikeouts minus 100 tonight. Think real strong play.
All right, and we'll see what he does tonight against Milwaukee and the Dodgers. Just 2 runs scored in each of the last 3 games, but they beat the Phillies in the crazy walk-off in the NLDS, and they did enough last night with the Freddie Freeman homer and then Mookie Betts with the bases-loaded walk to take a 1-0 series lead over the Brewers. Mariners, Blue Jays will resume in Seattle coming up tomorrow, and the Mariners up 2-0 going home. And quickly on that, Lee, before we talk about the football, that, you talked about the crazy atmosphere in Seattle, what it will probably be now up 2-0. Toronto totally silenced offensively, and now the Mariners 2 shots here going back home to close this thing out.
24 years. They've never been to a World Series, but 24 years since, they were good and they were really competitive. So, there's a lot of money out in Seattle, and trust me, the ticket price, I haven't checked yet, are going to be through the roof here. So people have been waiting decades for them, to make a run here. And this could very well be their first World Series entry here. So very impressed with this team here. After that game over the weekend, to be able to play 15 innings, you got to go deep in your pitching staff. I think they had to use 2 starters also they didn't plan on using. And then to get on a plane the next day, play the next night after, being exhausted mentally and physically, and to win that game, the first game somehow, and then blow out Toronto. Who knows? Anything could happen. Toronto could take the next 2, but you got to think that Seattle's going to at least, split here. So this is a team really starting to hit their stride. And how can you root against Seattle? I mean, unless you're a division rival, you're a Texas Ranger fan or Houston Astros fan. It's a great story.
And two other notes, too. Number one, that George Springer had that leadoff homer the first pitch in game one, and then the Blue Jays had one hit the rest of the game. Somebody mentioned, I don't remember where it was, but just throwing this out as like a talking point, that you kind of feel like, was that the World Series, the Blue Jays knocking the Yankees out in the last series? And now, not disrespect to Seattle, but that was so big, kind of slaying the dragon there because they hadn't, won the division in so long that maybe you had a bit of a letdown after you knocked out the Yankees.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, for the Red Sox in Toronto, that's their chief rival. So it's only natural. Anyone who's played sports knows that that's the way it is. So, I remember playing football and baseball. We would beat our rival, and the next game almost always, or next series wasn't so great. Sometimes we won, but you get up for those games, and you can't discount that. So probably played part of it, and probably thought, we can beat Seattle in the first game. We got our best pitcher. You're going to the hill. I think they were like 170, 180 in that first game. And then when you lose that, now all of a sudden everything changes, and now they're scrambling. So, they can still change. This is professional athletics. I mean, we've seen everything. Who's going to think, some of these games, you see some of these terrible teams in football and baseball win games when they got no one pitching against, basically Cy Young, but that's sports.
Yeah. And let's look back at last night on our selections 2-2. Let's start with this one, Lee, that you had a really good pulse on the over in the Bills-Falcons game. That's 14-7 after one. You're thinking, all right, here we go. This is going to be a track meet in Atlanta, but the Falcons defense really tightened up on the Bills. Atlanta pulled away, won that game. So it's now back-to-back losses for the Bills, and Josh Allen throws for under 200 yards. Atlanta's held all 5 quarterbacks to less than 200 yards passing. So the Falcons, after that loss to Tampa Bay, they got shut out by Carolina. A couple wins in a row. They're starting to kind of get it together now.
I mean, it's a crazy game. I think it was the second drive of the second half. You're sitting there at 21-14. You're sitting at 35 points. The total's 49 and a half. You're thinking 2 touchdowns and a field goal for more than a quarter and a half. That's certainly doable and probably likely. But, then teams went for it a couple times on fourth down, some turnovers, some interceptions when you're driving, killed everything, only a field goal the rest of the way. So thought we had the right side, just didn't work out that way.
And Zach Ertz in the Commanders game did go over his prop. Kind of having a weird game. Chicago jumped out to a lead early. Washington came back, took the lead. The Bears walked it off with a field goal. A little bit of revenge for that Hail Mary loss last year. It really ripped the heart out of Chicago. But with Zach Ertz, though, after a slow start, he picked it up and finished over his yardage prop.
Well, they're without one of their top receivers, obviously, in that game. That's part of it. But these tight ends these days, these guys are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". They can run like the wind. They're almost unguardable. Who's going to guard them? I mean, there's maybe 2 or 3 defensive backs that are 6'2", 6'3" in the league. Safeties that can guard these kind of guys with, a decent proficiency. So very, very tough to do. And you got a good quarterback who's accurate like Daniels. Any average to above average tight end is going to usually catch balls for at least 40 to 60 yards a game.
Now, we had mentioned the Mariners, Blue Jays. You had Trey Savage, who had been really good going into yesterday's game. Had 4 strikeouts in the first 2 innings for the Blue Jays, but then just couldn't. He gave 3 runs early in the controversial non-strike 3 to Rosarena, and then kind of kept the inning going or opened things up for Seattle. They hit the 3-run homer. He finished with 4 strikeouts, so you had the under on his 5.5 Ks. Yeah,
so thought it was, sometimes – the public, they're seeing things, and after a great game, it's tough to duplicate such an incredible game 2 times in a row. We know that from watching all the sports. So that was part of it that factored into it, and we'll take it. Went 2-2, and very easily could have been 3-0.
Yeah, absolutely. Did lose. I had the Blues Canucks over first period, end up with only 1 goal, so we lose that. Want to bring this up, Lee, as far as just what we've seen in the first now 6 weeks of the NFL, and teams are starting to have the buys and things like that. So we're seeing a few less games each week. But you did mention to me before the show, the NFC North, all 4 teams with a winning record now. And Green Bay, I don't know if they just sleptwalk through that against Cincinnati with knowing Joe Flacco was going to start and how much the Bengals have struggled. Lions end up losing to the Chiefs on Sunday night, but the Bears with that win last night, now they're starting to get it together. They get the Saints at home coming up this week. So Chicago can set themselves up nicely to be right in that mix with Green Bay, with Detroit, and even Minnesota hanging around.
You know, every team has some strengths and some weaknesses in that division, and it's not decided yet. I mean, Detroit the first week got punched in the face by Green Bay, and then obviously against Kansas City dominated them. So there's some questions there, especially with their defensive secondary. Minnesota quarterback, McCarthy's going to be back, and how good is he going to be? Can they be above average? Then you got, obviously Chicago. Chicago now 3-2. Look at the next 4 games. It's possible they could go on a 4-0 run. Now, let's say they do get to 6-3, 7-2. After that, they have a really tough schedule. So, that's going to be really tough for them. But, you got to be impressed with what they're doing. And, you get a good coach. That's gonna certainly help you. And then with Green Bay, a couple things I'm seeing. Their receivers getting no separation. They have a bunch of number 2s. They have about 5 of them. So that's great. But I think once you get in the playoffs in big games, you got to have a guy that you can go to. So that could be a problem. You can't just go to your tight end. And then their cornerback position. They can't cover anyone. I mean, Cincinnati has maybe the best 1-2 combination of receivers, but their cornerbacks didn't make one play the entire game. So, I know you're covering the best of the best, but they were right there. And, it's one thing to be right there, but never turning around on time. The ball's in the air. They don't tip it away. There's certain guys. I've seen it over the years. There's plenty of guys that have good coverage, but never make plays. So that's a part of the game. You can have great coverage, but you got to find a way, to make the guy, get to the sideline where he can't get his feet down. You got to tip the ball away, distract the guy, and they couldn't do that. Give Joe Flacco credit. At halftime, they made adjustments, and they were doing nothing on offense. And second half, that game goes any longer, I think Green Bay's in trouble. So all 4 of those teams are interesting and fun to watch, but right now, I don't see a team that's that great. In fact, in the NFL, I don't see any great teams out there. I mean, there's a couple teams with really good records like Tampa Bay and Indianapolis, but we could be talking, Kevin, in a couple of weeks that, they went from 5-1 to 5-3, and they're back in, kind of middling again. So it's going to be fun. That's what the NFL loves parity. The only thing they don't want 8 or 10 really bad teams, and there's a few bad ones out there, but there's a lot of pretty good ones.
I will say this before we hit the break. I found it interesting that you mentioned Chicago, and they have the stretch they go win 4 in a row. After New Orleans, who would have thought this would have happened before the season? You go to Baltimore and Cincinnati, probably won't win those games. Now you're facing Cooper Rush and Joe Flacco. Baltimore's an absolute mess. Cincinnati's a dumpster fire. So what a break that is for the Bears at those 2 road games. Not saying they're automatic wins, but they look like maybe losses going into the season. Now you should probably win those games because you have the better quarterback in each of those games.
Right. I mean, we don't know if Lamar Jackson's going to be back by then or not, but even with him back, I mean, Baltimore teams, they're dumpster fire. I mean, they weren't even competitive the last couple of weeks. So, I'm a Bears fan also. My daughter sings national anthems for them. So with the Dolphins being so bad, I got to have someone to root for. So they have a little piece of my heart because they love my daughter.
All right, we got a lot to get to here, Lee. We're going to shift our attention to the ice coming up. We have a couple NHL plays for Tuesday night, also a college football play for Saturday between Utah and BYU. All that is straight ahead as you are listening to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Bets. Let's talk now about FanDuel. That's right. And we are right in the middle of the NFL season, almost at the midway point, but we're getting there. FanDuel is an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And now week 6 in the books. We head to week 7 coming up on Thursday. Steelers and Bengals will kick off the next week of the NFL. But also, besides all the games, you have updated MVP odds. Josh Allen going into last night was the MVP favorite. Not anymore. He's second behind Kansas City's Patrick Mahomes. He is the favorite at FanDuel to win MVP. Josh Allen is second. Also now the Bills and the Chiefs, the top 2, the co-favorites to win the Super Bowl. So we'll see if we see them somewhere in the AFC playoffs coming up this season. You can bet on AFC winner, NFC winner, all the player awards, also player props as well. Going to Thursday, you can look at Aaron Rodgers and what he'll do as far as his passing props. Will Jamar Chase break out? Now he's got a new quarterback in Joe Flacco. You can look at his receiving yard props as well on FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. We roll on here, the Tuesday edition of Locked On Bets, and now timely to get your helmet on, get the Zamboni out, and let's look at a couple NHL plays. Let's start with our first hit.
To find a diamond in the rough, you need to dig a little deeper for those hidden gems.
But the Predators and Maple Leafs are on a back-to-back. Nashville won at Ottawa yesterday. Toronto stubbed its toe the last 2 games, losing to Detroit each time, even though they're up 2-0 on the Red Wings back on Saturday. They end up losing that game and then lose at home yesterday. So I do like the over in the first period between the Predators and Maple Leafs, over 1.5 goals, and it's around minus 130 or so. But I do think after Nashville had a low-scoring game most of the way, they broke out late against Ottawa. I think now on the back-to-back, these teams are playing back at night. No more day games, kind of a struggle playing during the day. Anthony Stolarz played last night for the Maple Leafs, and we'll see if he plays again on the back-to-back. Also, UC Saros played for Nashville in the front end of their back-to-back against Ottawa. I just think you'll have a couple goals here early. The Maple Leafs looking to just bust out after a couple of tough games here. So let's take the over 1.5 between Nashville and Toronto in the first period as our hidden gem.
All right. You lead us off, and I'm going to take us home.
All right, so let's do it then. NHL play number 2, blowout special.
Oh, boy. Last one out, turn off the lights. This one's a blowout.
The Lightning, they were playing yesterday. They beat the Bruins, finally got their first victory. They're in D.C. tonight in the second of a back-to-back to face the Capitals, who, what's interestingly is last year, Washington was one of the top first period over teams in the NHL. A lot of high-scoring games. This year, they haven't allowed a goal in the first period, and they've had a couple unders out of the gate, actually 3-0 to the under, I believe. So now they get the Lightning. Andrei Vasilevsky, he didn't play in the game yesterday against Boston. He'll suit up tonight. But, Lee, what do you like with this game between the Capitals and the Lightning in D.C.?
All right, so the Washington Capitals really shocked the NHL world last year with their performance. They won the Metro Division despite being projected by most people to miss the postseason. It's hard to predict where they finish this year, but I think they're in a good situational play here for at least tonight. So they were almost shut out by the awful Boston Bruins in their home opener this year, despite being in control pretty much for most of the game. And then they swept the Islanders and the Rangers on the road and bounced back before tonight's matchup. So this is the third game in 4 days for them. But they got last night off to rest, which I think is going to do them some good here. And I think they have some motivation here to rebound off of that not-so-good home opener. So the Tampa Bay Lightning, on the other hand, are playing their third game in 4 nights here, but are also on back end of back-to-backers here. So Andrei Vasilevsky, as you mentioned, is going to start in goal, it looks like here, with the backup goalie playing last night. But Vasilevsky has not looked like himself so far this year at all. So he suffered an undisclosed injury during training camp, but has played through it. Right now, 0-2 with a .855, just an .855 save percentage and 4.67 goals allowed per game. So he has struggled also against Washington historically. his 311 goals against average versus Washington, his third worst of any team he's faced in his career. And with Tampa already facing some injuries among the forward group, I think this line should be closer to 130, 135 here as Washington is the favorite. So I'm going to go with the Washington Capitals here. Money line minus 110 to 115. Blowout special.
Yeah, in Tampa Bay, they had the 3-1 lead over Ottawa in the opener, lost that one. They fell behind early to New Jersey. In their second game, they came out firing yesterday against Boston, and then the Bruins made a bit of a comeback. But, yeah, we'll see if this all catches up with the Lightning. And the Capitals, again, like you said, Lee, not very high expectations last year. They win the division. They had Ovechkin breaking the scoring record, so a lot of good things coming out of there. And Metro, you never know with them every year. Metro is always going to be any team win that division. All right, coming up, we are going to go to college football. Actually have a couple games tonight, Lee. We continue this 49 days of consecutive of football. So a couple Sun Belt Conference USA games. We're going to focus on Saturday's matchup between Utah and BYU. That is coming up next for our lock of the day right here on Locked On Bets. Locked On Bets continues here on a Tuesday. Kevin Rogers and Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports. So Utah and BYU, never friendly when they meet up, as they will hook up in a Big 12 battle coming up on Saturday. Time now, Lee, for the lock of the day.
Open it, open it, open it. Lee has the key to the lock of the day.
Utah and BYU. For years, BYU was independent. Utah was in the Pac-12, but now they're finally conference rivals. They have an 8 o'clock Eastern kickoff, 6 o'clock out in Utah. They're playing in Provo, coming up, not Provo, Spain, Provo, Utah. And that one coming up Saturday night, Utah and BYU. Lee, what do you like here? Utah's a 3.5-point favorite.
So what's crazy is you will see so many times a player will transfer from Utah to BYU and also from BYU to Utah. So family divided. I mean, it's like, we live in Florida, a lot of Florida State, Miami fans. So among a lot of families, a lot of just houses where one or many members of the family root for one side and many for the other here. And they also, a lot of kids also go on missions and then come back and then go to the other school. Things change for them, and that's understandable. So they know each other really well here. Usually the games are pretty close. BYU won last year 22-21, plus 3.5 on a last-second field goal. Both teams are fighting for the Big 12. There's like 7 or 8 teams that could possibly win the Big 12. I mean, it is absolutely wide open, and these are two of those teams. Both teams are ranked. BYU ranked 15th, hasn't played the tougher schedule or as tough as Utah's. And Utah's ranked 23rd, and obviously their only loss so far this year was against Texas Tech. Nothing to shake a stick at. So both teams are strong at quarterback. Devin Dampier probably has a little bit of an edge for Utah. 11 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions, completing over 71% of his passes. And he's also run for 5 touchdowns. He's a dual-threat quarterback. I just don't think his weapons are great. What I think is going to happen is I think BYU is going to put a spy on him 40, 50% of the time. They have to. His running, whether it's designed or when he drops back to pass, is too great. And usually when you get to these type of rivalries, you're not going to see high-scoring games. You're not going to see a 43-40 game like you see sometimes in college football. Also, Bear Bachmeier starting to come on his own. They won on the road. I know it was in overtime against Arizona last week, but he's looked good. 8 touchdowns. He's thrown 4. He's ran for 290. And then, Ryan, these guys have averaged 19.1, 14.5, and 15.1, whereas the receivers on the other side for Utah, just 10.7 yards per reception and 11.3 yards per reception, their top 2 guys. So I think this is a game that comes down to a last-second field goal or last-second possession. I'm going to take the 3 points, 3.5, and the home team here. We're going to go with a level 2 lock, BYU. yep, the Cougars plus 3.5. I think they're going to find a way to win it outright here, 23-20, and knock off Utah.
Yeah, the Big 12 is just up in the air this year with everything. People thought K-State could have been the team, and they had their struggles early on in the season. Arizona State now with the Levitt injury, saw that, and them just lose to Utah. That now it could go several different ways with the way the Big 12 is going. So, Lee, now that I mentioned Tuesday night, we have football. So every day we have football. So Paramount Sports, what's going on? Very busy time for you.
All right, so there's a game I'm tracking for tonight based on an injury to a key player on one of the three college games. Going to be very important to see what happens. If something happens one way, might be a pretty big play for us. So if you're not already on my service, get signed up through the rest of October. Well, we call it Locktober. Use coupon code SAVE200, just $297. You're going to get through October 31st. So games every single day in football, college, and the NFL. No breaks on Tuesday and Wednesday anymore. So you want to try us out, use coupon code SAVE200. Just one place, ParamountSports.com.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Locked On Bets, as well as subscribing to our podcast, Locked On Bets, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We're back with you coming up on Wednesday for another edition of Locked On Bets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.